and because that is in for injustice, but for not truth, or I have an intolerance for it, and I usually will confront it, or I'll often controlling with my thinking. I can talk for an hour or two nonstop if I know what I'm talking about. It would be nicer to take 5 or 10 hours and talk about these things and interact and send it back and forth. That's not the Pluto Mercury way. So I have the Pluto Mercury way. But it doesn't mean I didn't have fears or power struggles or confrontations over what's right or what's wrong or what's true. I had fights with teachers and things, but it made me stronger. It made me smarter. By the time I left school and I left university and I was out on my own, 15 years later when I went back to see a reunion and stuff, or 20 years later, I was really grateful I didn't stay in the town I was, in the university I was, because it was narrow-minded. And I learned far more by leaving it, even though I got attacked by a lot of people for leaving. So at the same time, I grew up in a family where mom and dad were fighting and half breaking up, and we were poor, and there were battles and these things we went through. So always had to think about, before I did anything, I always had to think, is there trouble around? Is dad there? Is someone there? Am I going to get hit? Whatever. If you can't ask for something, if you know you're going to ask, if you ask for something, you know you're not going to get it. You're going to be told no. You're going to go do things before you ask. If you get caught, you get caught. But if you ask, you know you're not going to get it anyways. So Pluto brings the fear into the mind, into the thinking. So it can be really phobic. It can really be anxiety-ridden, feeling, I'm afraid of everything, I can't do anything, and the mind can shut you down. A negative mind can really impair your life. But a truthful mind, a strong mind, once you've looked at the real thing and you've done the therapy and worked at it, looked at it, it becomes a really powerful asset. But usually Pluto to Mercury are going to have, they're not easy to talk to. They're not frivolous to talk to. They can be frivolous for a while, but usually as soon as something comes up that's real, they're going to get serious, they're going to be quiet, or if someone talks too loud or too harshly or whatever, instantly alert. And then from that alertness, start thinking about the repercussions and the relativity of that fear to my circumstances, or that block, or that confrontation. As an adult, maybe someone controls what they're thinking so much that they're in control of it, and they're controlling their thinking so that they're not listening to people. They're not listening to the potential interferences. So it does create a kind of harshness on the mind and a necessity thinking. This can go wrong, that can go wrong. Our family, sarcasm was the humor that dealt with the abuse and injustices that were going on. Everyone had it. But so when you have that, you're going to encourage anyone who has the Mercury Pluto to be intelligent, to use their mind, to take it further, to push it further, to make it stronger. They may have a fear of writing, but they might be really smart. There might be another way of writing or something else to do. They might not know so much, and they might think I can never talk about the things that are going on, or things that happen because they're too dark. But then if they get specialized in something, or they're doing research or trying to find, they'll find the answer. If they're working as a consultant with people, or a psychologist or something, working with people, they'll push to get to the real answers, to the real truth. So it's not as strictly negative as to the moon. There's generally an intelligent aspect to Pluto Mercury aspects. But it's a harsh intelligence, it's a disenchanted intelligence about the reality of the world. And if that's all you're thinking, then that one can become the newscaster and just watching the news all the time. But it's supposed to see, that's bullshit. Excuse the expression, that's nonsense. I'm going to turn my mind inward to find inner truth and what's true inwardly. So when I discovered that spirituality and love was a scientific process, as much as the outer science is a process. So there's a science of going inwardly through yoga, through meditation, through directing the mind inwardly. Wow, that totally changed my life. Then I had to find it everything, but it still was, I went at it seriously, I still do. And astrology came right in and filled in a void and was the most useful language to know. So someone with a Mercury Pluto has a confrontational mind. They learn by their adversities or by challenges or by people challenging them. That's not true. That's true. What would you say that for? Why that? When that's, and they're going to think people have wrong ideas of what's true, and many people do. They're going to have their own take, and they might have to be challenged if it goes. So this battle is going on. The mind is not easily at peace. There's many battles and fears. However, that very battle, if it wakes up to having to turn the mind into the heart and into love and trying to think inwardly, that very battle and intensity can wake one up that I can't go there anymore. I have to think differently. And it can really be the power to redirect your mind inwardly. So when you've redirected your mind inwardly, you have heartfelt thinking. You're thinking from your heart. When you're thinking from Pluto, you're not thinking from your heart. So, I mean, there's so many aspects. You can't hold them all together. You can't even stay studying any one of them for that long of a time. You just get a sense of that energy. And then when you run into it, you ask about it, you look at it, you question it till you find out what it is. So how someone thinks, someone could be very rigid or fearful in the way they think. And you might not know it because you're not involved with their thinking. Might be afraid of thinking, might be controlled by, they might control their partner in their thinking, or they might be controlled by their partner in their thinking, or teachers or parents or whatever, told what to do. Or thinking this is nonsense, I have to think for myself, even though nobody is. So I come from a poor family. There was a lot of abuse and stuff, but when I started high school, well, in grade 8, it was grade 9 and 10, no, 10 and 11. We had math books for the 2 years, geometry and algebra. And when I got there, I liked it so much. I found it so interesting. I took the algebra book and the geometry, I think, and I did every exercise in it, like a game. I did every exercise for the 2 years in the first month or two. My teacher wouldn't believe me. I went to the principal, and there was one math teacher who knew that I had done this and believed me. And he spoke to the principal with me, but went to the principal and asked, can I, my math teacher, she just wanted me to stay and do the same thing as everyone else and just sit there and be bored to death. She wouldn't believe that I did it. She thought I was dishonest. So in going to the principal with another teacher, I was able to get, I had to take her 2 main classes, the 2 main classes, but they divided it in half. So instead of 2 algebra and 2 geometry classes a week, I had 1 of each in her class. And I had 2 other classes of advanced math, intermediate algebra, and calculus in 2 other advanced classes in math in the higher level class. And I had 2 extra subjects, but I aced them all. But I didn't get it easily. There was fights to stop me from getting it. Even now with astrology, people fight against astrology. You do what? What's what? But when someone's open, there's a lot of information here. So anyway, I didn't mean to be talking about myself so much. I was just trying to give some examples of the Pluto aspect. Everybody's going to have their own specific take on it. But this harshness, the search for reality, the fearful thinking, and the need to overcome or to control one's thinking or not be lied to or to think what's real. Now, sometimes I've been so rigid in my thinking when I was in the negative world, I wasn't open to the system. I was angry. Then when it finally turned around, it changed as I got older. But mentors, these people need mentors and need to be challenged on their ideas and get interested in things rather than dissing them. So it's not just, your Mercury, like Pluto's hitting the Mercury. But you got your moon, you got your Mercury, you got your Venus, you got your sun, all your personal things to make up your sense of self-worth and confidence. And Pluto's a threat to that. It takes away some innocence on that, and you have to fight to get it back. And you can restore innocence. You can get beyond it, but it takes special work. Okay. So you might see, it would be interesting, like some high functional autistic kids might have this. They might be thinking really clearly, but they don't have a sense of boundaries or are afraid of what's outside. But if the Pluto was to Mercury, they might be afraid of what's outside, but I would think they have a special gift that is not being challenged and no one's around clued into it. And how do you channel their mind to direct it? How do you get special education instead of just putting them in environments that aren't going to work for them? How do you work through it? Okay, puzzles. Everybody a puzzle, but the Mercury, there's a challenge to get past the fear to get to the intelligence. There's a fight for it. And when it's there, it's brilliant. But if in a fixed sign, Pluto would be rigid. In a mutable sign, it'd be very diverse. In a cardinal sign, very pushy. So all these factors come in as to how this energy is coming in to affect the Mercury. And Mercury is trying to fight it and make it and deal with itself in spite of having to look at this. Okay, but it's useful, it's intelligent. It's in a lot of charts of psychologists, astrologers, people working with people, inventors. It's really perceptive. So when it's successful, it's really successful. When it's not, other people are controlling your thinking. It can get negative. So what's true? Pluto is this truth. If you're looking this far out, what's true out here? Is it a planet? Isn't it a planet? What's true? You know, to me, it's a planet because there's a moon going around it. Duh. You know, not because whether it's perfectly round or not. Okay, so the Mercury is not the most noticeable factor. It's noticeable, but you see the Pluto to the moon really easily. Pluto to Mercury, you got to look at and think at, and you may not see it. It's the way someone's thinking and processing, but it's there. When you get Pluto to Venus, this is dramatic. This is distinctly there. Venus is your sense of attraction and repulsion, magnetism, love and hate, you know, lust, envy, indulgence, satisfaction, your self-worth. And if you have a lousy self-worth or you've been involved, you've attracted a lot of corrupt things or low level, overindulgent things, you're going to have a lesser sense of self-worth or grosser sense of it. So like Venus can get really gross, it'll be really refined and elegant. Depends on what your self-worth, what your Venus is. Like your Venus in the sign in the house, how you live your life, whether you were loved or liked or not. Well, if Pluto hits your Venus, there was a fear or block around love and money when you were born. So usually Pluto to Venus means you weren't the most wanted kid. Pluto to the moon can be that, but Pluto to Venus really has this element not being the most wanted kid. You feel not loved, or no one's going to love you, or you're not going to get what you want. This can come from having brothers that get everything and you get nothing. Or there's a block or a fear around emotions. This means when you were born, your parents were afraid of having kids and afraid of the money and afraid of what's going to cost, afraid of how to deal with it. And you picked it up. Who's responsible for their fears? You made those fears happen for them. How dare you ask for more?